The following podcast is brought to you by the Johners Podcasting Network, found exclusively at WrestlingWithJohners.com.
And hello again, wrestling fans. Welcome to another edition of This Week in History. I want to thank you for joining us on either Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcasts from. Also, we are on Rumble, YouTube, and on Facebook. And this is This Week in History, looking at the week of April 8th to the 14th. Got a lot going on. Going to have Dustin Rhodes and Gene Kiniski in our Superstar Spotlight, and look back at the night that Raw ended up beating WCW in the ratings war. So I want to thank you for joining us, and we can't do any of it until we go over to Niagara Falls and bring in Jonesy. Hello, Jonesy. How are you, sir?
Good evening. I'm doing pretty damn good. Beautiful day outside.
Yeah, not too bad here in London either. We are recording this actually on Wednesday, which is a little unusual for us, being able to do it this way. But it will be available for everybody on Thursday for their normal viewing. And hopefully we'll be finish this before Survivor is on. I think it's a 2-hour episode tonight. But we are here talking about history. There's been a lot going on in the regular world of wrestling. I don't know if people even caught last night. There was even a little hint, potentially, of The Rock against Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39, hinted at during Young Rock last night. So, yeah, a lot if you pick up those little wink and nod moments. But we'll see if history gets made next year due to what they foreshadowed supposedly 30 years ago in 1996 with a little Joe and Dewey in the living room. So maybe we'll have that to talk about in the future. But we are talking about history of wrestling for April 8th to the 14th. And if you want to start off with some headlines, we'll get ready.
All right. 26 years ago, April 8th, 1996, a forklift was needed on Raw to remove an injured Yokozuna from the ring area. Yoko couldn't move under his own power after Vader bombed Zuna's leg. And that's a good thing forklift was there, because if I was an ambulance driver, I would have told him to go suck eggs.
Yeah, that wasn't the best thing. And I wonder if they almost did it in a way, it would probably be considered body shaming now if they did it purposely because they couldn't get an actual stretcher to help Rodney properly. But if that was the only way that they actually could move him, because he was probably at that point well over 600, close to 700 pounds, you never know.
It shows how big the man was when he sat on a pallet and basically took up the pallet. So,
oh yeah.
Yikes. 19 years ago, April 8th, 2003, at a SmackDown taping in Chicago, Roddy Piper returns to the WWF for his first Piper's Pit since WrestleMania 5. Vince McMahon would be his guest. They would be interrupted by Rikishi and a revenge payback coconut stemming from 1984 in Jimmy Snuka. However, Sean O'Haire attacked Rikishi and hit Rikishi with the coconut.
Yeah, and that story pretty much went nowhere. And it's unfortunate. I think they had issues with Piper and Sean O'Haire. His career could have been much better. And I guess his life wasn't as good as it could have been. And we no longer have Sean with us.
35 years ago, April 9th, 1987, Jim Crockett Promotions purchases Bill Watts' Universal Wrestling Federation. 22 years ago, April 10th, 2000, Eric Bischoff and Vince Russo returned to WCW on Monday Nitro. They would add another nail to their coffin as they would reboot WCW by announcing all titles would be vacated and decided at that weekend's Spring Stampede. Of course, that didn't sit well with fans, and it would just get worse from there.
Are we surprised that it was over with less than a year later?
Yeah, that reboot just was dumb. Also on the show, Mike Awesome would make his debut. That in itself is another story, as he was the current ECW champion. There would be some hiccups and a lot of lawyers and contracts to sift through. 13 years ago, April 10th, 2009, Tori Wilson announces her retirement from wrestling. And nobody cared. 58 years ago, April 11th, 1964, in Washington, D.C., Buddy Rogers is presented the WWF World Heavyweight Championship belt, making him the promoter's first champion. The promotion's first champion. Rogers would win a kayfabe tournament as Vince McMahon Sr. and Joseph Toots Mont defected from the NWA. It would not last long, as Rogers would drop the belt 22 days later in under a minute to Bruno Sammartino.
Yeah, and I'm noticing here, probably obviously an accident because the 9 and 0 are right beside each other, but it seems so long ago, and my picture of Buddy Rogers is in black and white. Those seeing visually are going to see at the bottom of the screen, April 11th, 1064, that Buddy Rogers was given the title. Wrestling has not been around officially that long, nor was Buddy Rogers.
But it is reportedly the oldest sport.
Oh, for sure.
All right. 25 years ago, April 11th, 1997, over in Kauai, on Good Morning Kuwait, both Vader and The Undertaker interviewed. The host asked if wrestling is fake. The Undertaker gave a diplomatic answer. However, Vader grabs the host by the tie and flips the table and asks, "Does this look fake to you?" Vader, Leon White, would be under house arrest for 10 days and pay a fine before returning to the States. 12 years ago, April 11th, 2010, Texas Stadium was demolished. The home of the Dallas Cowboys was no more. The Texas Stadium was imploded in spectacular fashion. The stadium hosted world-class championship wrestling's Parade of Champions events, including Kerry Von Erich's 1984 NWA World Championship win over Ric Flair, just 3 months following the death of Kerry's brother David. From the ashes of Texas Stadium rose the home of WrestleMania 32 and 2 weekends ago, 38, A&T Stadium.
Yeah, it holds a lot more people than probably the Texas Stadium did at one point because, well, if you believe WWE's inflated numbers, mind you, at 32, they were over 100,000 people in attendance for WrestleMania.
Yeah, and then they can only fit 70 in for this year in the same stadium.
Yeah. Well, we are in a COVID time.
And it was 2 days, so I kind of somewhat understand. But I believe the 70,000 over the 100.
Yeah.
11 years ago, April 11th, 2011, on Raw, Adam Copeland, best known to wrestling fans as Edge, announces his retirement from professional wrestling due to the risk of paralysis or even death stemming from neck problems and numbness that led to a diagnosis of cervical spinal stenosis. Of course, he would return to the ring action at Royal Rumble 2020.
Yeah, and now looks to be forming some sort of revival of the Brood.
With who?
Oh, currently with Damian Priest, and there's rumored to have Rhea Ripley there, maybe Tommaso Ciampa. I've also heard Dexter Lumis would be a nice addition to him because of how creepy Dexter is, but he's locked up in a story over on NXT, so who knows what's going to go on with Edge in this new...
too bad they couldn't get... God, what's his name? Is it Victor? Over in AEW, the guy that screams all the time?
Yeah, I'm not sure which one.
Anyways, there's a guy over in AEW. Hilarious. He just like screams a lot and sounds like a woman, but he's not. He looks very much like a creepy man, but it's humorous. 28 years ago on April 13th, 1994, in St. Paul, Minnesota, Jesse Ventura is awarded nearly $810,000 in videotape and merchandising royalties after a Minnesota state court found the WWF liable for fraud and misappropriation of publicity rights. This all stemmed from compensation the other wrestlers and celebrities received for WWF video releases. Ventura believed he too deserved compensation, which the court agreed with him. This case, Ventura versus Titan Sports, was an important case in regards to restitution law.
I think I distracted you while talking about Edge, so we missed a couple. So I'll go back quickly and say
you go ahead and do those.
Yeah, no problem. 8 years ago, on April 11th, 2014, the wedding bells would ring for Dana Bryan, or Bryan Danielson, and Brianna Garcia, also known as Brie Bella. They married in a small wedding ceremony in Sedona, Arizona. And of course, we now know that he's also related to John Laurinaitis, who was the brother of Animal. That's a whole big wrestling family now just formed out of marriages going on with that one. Also, on April 12th, 1999, The Rock gets even with Stone Cold Steve Austin by kicking his candy ass and tossing Austin's smoking skull belt into the Detroit River. This was revenge for when Austin did the same thing a year earlier with the Intercontinental Championship belt of The Rock's. And finally, we have that the next day after Edge had announced his retirement, he relinquished the WWE World Championship at SmackDown taping. And there was a 20-man battle royal booked that would decide who would face the number one contender for the belt. And that number one contender was the former champion Del Rio. And in this case, Christian ended up eliminating Jack Swagger last to face Del Rio at Extreme Rules for the vacated World Heavyweight Championship. And kind of natural that Edge's kayfabe brother, best friend, would end up being the number one contender and eventually getting the title. Almost a bit like how when Rey Mysterio got the belt after Eddie Guerrero passed away and was sort of honored their friendship, Christian got the same honors in a way to honor Edge and take the title. And that ended up in a wonderful feud with Randy Orton.
And he lost it to him, didn't he?
Yes, they changed it back and forth a few times.
39 years ago, April 14th, 1983, the Japan Pro Wrestling Alliance shuts down. This comes shortly after two top stars, Giant Baba and Antonio Inoki, left to form their own companies and took many of JWA's wrestlers with them. Those two companies, All Japan Pro Wrestling and New Japan Pro Wrestling. 8 years ago, April 14, 2014, Fandango's theme, Cha-La-La, comes in at a number 44 on the UK singles charts. This is not the first time a WWE song would make the charts in the UK. Hacksaw Jim Duggan's single from 1993 WrestleMania album hit number 71 in 93, and WWF Superstar Slam Jam would hit number 4 on the UK charts in 92. Tells me they don't put a lot of good music out there in the UK.
Yeah, sorry to our Johners fans on that one. But yeah, I think it also stemmed from the fact that that was just after WrestleMania, and Fandango went against Chris Jericho, and that night of WrestleMania, and definitely the night after WrestleMania on Raw, the fans were singing Fandango's theme song and made it huge that way.
Mm-hmm. Crowd participation. And now on to some sadness. Here we go with some deaths. 35 years ago, April 12th, 1987, Michael Brett Atkinson, best known to wrestling fans as Mike Von Erich, dies of suicide. At the time, he had some legal troubles and suffered from head injuries after an auto accident in which his vehicle overturned. At the time of his death, he was 1/3 of the World Class Championship Wrestling 6 Tag Team Champions with brother Kevin and Lance. And Lance was a kayfabe brother. 6 years ago, April 12th, 2016, Jonathan Reachner, best known to wrestling fans as Balls Mahoney, dies of a heart attack in his hometown of Spring Lakes Heights, New Jersey. He was only 44.
Yeah, and he, for those who didn't realize, also played Santa Claus when Ted DiBiase brought in the evil brother of Santa Claus from the South Pole.
Nice.
And of course, we know it didn't last long, and he went to ECW and became Balls Mahoney.
All right, we're going to go to Shawn for the Superstar Spotlight, and it's Gene Kiniski.
Yeah, so Eugene Nicholas Kiniski, who was born April 14th, 2010, died of cancer in a long-term care facility in Blaine, Washington at the age of 81. Gene was one of 6 children of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, Alderman Julia Kiniski. Gene excelled in sports in high school and invited to the Edmonton Eskimos camp along with Al Orlin and Stu Hart. He would earn a scholarship to the University of Arizona and would get into professional wrestling at the same time. He would train with Dory Funk, Sr., and Tony Morelli and make his pro wrestling debut February 13th, 1952, less than a month removed from college. He would suffer a torn kneecap and would eventually retire from football to concentrate on wrestling full-time. He would have a great success in the NWA, the AWA, winning many championships, and was considered one of Canada's best athletes. He'd even win the AWA world title and tag team titles on the same day. Kiniski was inducted into the inaugural member of the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Hall of Fame in 1996. In 2004, he was inducted into the professional wing of the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. And in 2007, he was inducted into the St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame and inducted into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame in 2008. So he has yet to make it into the WWE Hall of Fame. He was a 2-time AWA Tag Team Champion, 4-time AWA US Champion, 1-time World Champion for the AWA. Over in the WWF, he was a 1-time US Tag Team Champion, plus 47 other NWA and international titles, ranging from going in BC, Hawaii, down in different southern parts of the United States, over in Japan even. So he's well-traveled and definitely a highly decorated talent, and he's one of Canada's finest.
Yep, all those that have or had grandparents or anything like that, those are the guys that they remember. And he was trained by Dory Funk, no Jr. Jr. didn't actually debut until 1963. Big events. I think that's where we're heading. Yes.
Yep.
Big events. 32 years ago, April 8th, 1990, the American Wrestling Association presented Super Clash 4 from Minnesota. This would be the last major event for the AWA as they were going through hard times. Well, that didn't sound like Dusty Rhodes at all, but anyways. Super Class 4 would be the final major event for the AWA as they would shut down production of their weekly TV show and would file for bankruptcy the following year. Let's see on the card.
Yeah, I think just before you get to the card, I think the final year of the AWA consisted of them being with a ring and a green screen and just doing studio wrestling and filling in fans and just really weird late 80s, early 90s graphics over top of the green screens, and just looked really horrible and cheesy. It's a shame, but some good stars came out of there and made their way to the WWF and WCW at the time.
Mm-hmm. And they left and they left a great library. And nothing really super important on that card. Let's see. We had the Texas Hangman, Killer and Psycho, defeating Brad Riggins and DJ Patterson. John Nord of course, that's
Husk.
There you go. Defeated Kokina Maximus, who, of course, was Banzai. Baron von Raschke defeated Colonel De Beers by countout. Always like Colonel De Beers. Larry Zbyszko defeated Mr. Sato to win the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. Nick Bockwinkel was the special referee. 28 years ago, April 12th, 1994, WWF taped the 400th episode of Wrestling Challenge from Rochester, New York. On the card, Lex Luger defeated the always tough Tony DeVito via submission. Jeff Jarrett defeated John Paul, no Levesque. And the 1-2-3 Kid defeated Quang. Poor Quang. Thurman Sparky Plug defeated PJ Walker. And Erwin R. Shyster defeated a real, I can't sell it, Jason Hawkins via submission. 32 years ago, April 13th, 1990, All Japan Pro Wrestling and the WWF co-presented the U.S.-Japan Wrestling Summit from the Tokyo Dome. On the card, Jushin Liger defeated Akira Nogami. Tiger Mask and Bret Hart fought to a 20-minute draw. The Great Kabuki defeated Greg Valentine. Generico Tenryu defeated Macho Man Randy Savage. Andre the Giant and Giant Baba defeated Demolition Axe and Smash. I bet you that was a terrible match. And Hulk Hogan defeated Stan Hansen, and that probably wasn't much more exciting.
What stands out to me, actually, when reading over the results of the card is the fact that Tiger Mask and Bret Hart went 20 minutes. I'm probably wrong because I just thought for a second Tiger Mask was Eddie Guerrero at one point. We'd have to look back and see if Tiger Mask was Eddie Guerrero at that time, or because I know Pegasus Kid was Benoit, but I'm not sure who was on Mask.
According to Wikipedia, yeah, there's tons of different Tiger Masks, so it doesn't say which one. There was
exactly
2, 4, 6, 8 different Tiger Masks, and none of them are who you mentioned.
Oh, no, Eddie? Okay.
No, but so I'm not sure, but Tiger Mask is very famous over in Japan. There's an anime series, and they even had their own wrestler, Tiger Mask W. But yeah, I'm just looking for the names here.
I'm just trying to remember.
Mitsushiro Misawa was one of the Tiger Masks, so there's some big names in there. Going back, find my spot. There it is. 25. Sorry.
Yeah, go for
25. It. 25 years ago, April 13th, 1997, ECW makes its pay-per-view debut with Barely Legal. The pay-per-view outlets would request an advance script and no access bleeding, among other stipulations. This was due to the Mass Transit incident 6 months earlier. Mass Transit, of course, was a young wannabe wrestler who lied about his age and who trained him. He was pitted in a match with Devon Dudley against New Jack and Mustafa of the Gangstas, and New Jack messed him up real good. 20 years ago, April 13th, 2002, World Wrestling All-Stars presented Eruption from the Rod Laver Arena in Melbourne, Australia. 14 years ago, April 13th, 2008, TNA presented Lockdown 2008, where every match was contested in a steel cage. 13 years ago, April 13th, 2009, WWE presented the 2009 WWE Draft on Raw. The big the big moves of the night were going to Raw was MVP, Big Slow, and Triple H. And going over to SmackDown was CM Punk, Kane, and Jericho. And 29 years ago, April 14th, 1993, WCW makes its debut in New York City at the Paramount Theater in Madison Square Garden. And Sean, if you'd like to do the title changes.
Yeah, we'll switch over to that. April 8th, 1990, Larry Zbyszko defeated Mr. Saito for the AWA World Heavyweight Championship. Nick Bockwinkel was a special referee. That was covered just a moment ago at Super Clash 4. On April 8th, 1995, Eddie Guerrero defeated Too Cold Scorpio to win the ECW World Television Championship. April 8th,
I will take that if I hear your dog wants something.
Yep.
April 8th, 1995, Public Enemy, Flyboy Rocco Rock, and Johnny Grunge defeated Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko and Rick Steiner and the Tasmaniacs in a three-way dance to win the ECW World Tag Team Championship. 20 years ago, April 8th, 2002, on Raw from Arizona, Spike Dudley defeated William Regal in just 3 seconds to win the WWF European Championship. 9 years ago, April 8th, 2013, on Raw, Wade Barrett reclaimed the IC belt from The Miz in a rematch from the WrestleMania 29 pre-show. Kind of silly. WrestleMania pre-show. The pre-show, and they have the Intercontinental belt defended on it. Pathetic.
Hey, at least it was defended at that. The IC or US title didn't even make it to WrestleMania this year. They were relegated to WrestleMania SmackDown the night before.
See, I don't get that. That just makes your titles even less important when you don't have it on your biggest night of the year.
Exactly. It should have been there. I would have even accepted it being part of the pre-show to, hey, hype up what you're going to see. But they instead spent 2 hours just talking about what you're going to see on the next 4 hours. So you spent 6 hours of your day, but 2 hours you didn't get any action. They should have at least put some sort of action there for those sitting at home and to bring the fans into the building and into their seats.
I agree. Something tells me it has something to do with the contract that they have with Peacock.
Quite possible.
April 8th, 2013, Alberto Del Rio defeated Jack Swagger by submission to retain the World Heavyweight Championship. However, Dolph Ziggler cashed in his Money in the Bank briefcase and defeated Del Rio to win the World Heavyweight Championship. 21 years ago, April 9th, 2001, in Tokyo, Japan, Kazuyuki Fujiya defeated Scott Norton to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. And Shawn.
Yeah, I'll tag right back in with April 10th, 2001 at SmackDown in Philadelphia with the help of his brother Matt. Jeff Hardy defeated Triple H to win the WWF Intercontinental Championship. On April 10th, 2014, at TNA Impact taping, Eric Young defeated Magnus to win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. April 11th, 1985, in Texas, the Rock and Roll Express defeated Dick Murdoch and Randy Rhodes in the finals of a one-night tournament to win the NWA World Tag Team Championships. April 11th, 1999, Scott Steiner defeated Booker T to win the vacated WCW US Championship. Diamond Dallas Page defeated Hollywood Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, and Sting in a fatal four-way as part of the main event to win the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. Randy Savage was the special guest referee for that match. April 11th, 2011, Brie Bella defeated Eve Torres to win the WWE Divas Championship. Also on that same day, but different organization, April 11th, 2011, on Impact from Corpus Christi, Chavo Guerrero and Hernandez defeated Bobby Roode and Austin Aries in a best 203 falls match with a score of 2-1 to win the TNA World Tag Team Championship. 42 years ago, on April 12th, 1980, the Wild Samoans, Afa and Sika, defeated Ivan Putski and Tito Santana to win the WWF Tag Team Championships. April 12th, 1999, on Raw's War from Detroit, The Godfather defeated Goldust to win the WWF Intercontinental Championship. April 12th, 2010, a Raw taping at Cardiff, Wales, Eve Torres defeated Maryse to win the WWE Divas Championship. And April 13th, 1997, the Eliminators, Perry Saturn and John Kronos, defeated the Dudley Boys, Bubba Ray and Devon, to win the ECW Tag Team Championships. And one last stretch.
April 13th, 1997, Terry Funk defeated Raven to win the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. 22 years ago, April 13, 2000 in Indianapolis, Taz defeated Mike Awesome via submission in just 75 seconds to win the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. This was a surprise to many as Mike Awesome jumped to WCW while still ECW champ. A deal would be struck for Awesome to face against WWF sign wrestler Taz. This was believed to be the only time a contracted WCW wrestler faced a contracted WWF wrestler for the ECW belt on TV. Taz would only hold the title for 9 days, losing it to Tommy Dreamer at CyberSlam 2000, only to lose it less than a half hour later to Just Incredible.
Hot potato titles.
Hot potato titles. April 13th, 2002, AJ Styles defeated Jerry Lynn to win the WWA International Cruiserweight Championship. April 13th, 2002, on the same show, Scott Steiner defeated Nathan Jones by submission to win the WWA World Heavyweight Championship. Sid Vicious was the special enforcer. 20 years ago, April 13th, 2002, in Tokyo, Genericio Tenryu defeated Toshiaki Kawada to win the vacated All Japan Pro Wrestling Triple Crown Championship. Both those guys have hard first names. 15 years ago, April 13th, 2007, in Osaka, Japan, Yuji Nagata defeated Hiroshi Tanahashi to win the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, and ending Tanahashi's title reign at 270 days. April 13th, 2008, Samoa Joe defeated Kurt Angle to win the TNA World Heavyweight Championship. 18 years ago, April 14th, 2004, at an NWA TNA weekly pay-per-view taping in Nashville, Apollo and D'Lo Brown defeated Kid Cash in Dallas by international disqualification to win the NWA World Tag Team Championship.
Yeah, when I went and got this picture, I almost thought it was Brian Cage, a little bit bulkier Brian Cage with D'Lo Brown, but it's Apollo, which is a gentleman I've not encountered anywhere else.
Yeah, neither have I. 14 years ago, April 14, 2008, on Raw from England, Mickie James defeated Beth Phoenix to win the WWE Women's Championship for a fourth time. 14 years ago, April 14, 2008, at a TNA Impact taping at Universal Orlando, Kaz and Super Eric win the TNA tag belts, but after Super Eric refused to take off his mask, even though Kaz and Eric Young earned a title shot, Jim Cornette strips them of the titles, holding them up until this Sacrifice pay-per-view. And finally, April 14, 2008, Petey Williams cashes in his Feast or Fried briefcase and defeated Jay Lethal to win the TNA X Division Championship. And now over to my colleague, Shawn, who will do the Superstar Spotlight, Dustin Rhodes.
Yeah, we're going to get over to some birthdays, but we're going to start off with Dustin in the Spotlight. Normally, I just have one picture, and lately I have maybe two, but Dustin has had so many different looks to him over the years that I put 4 out of the 5 on here for this slide. But Dustin Patrick Rhodes, born April 11th, 1969, is currently signed with AEW, where he performs under his name Dustin Rhodes. He's best known for his multiple tenures with WWE from 95 to 2019 under the gimmick and ring name Goldust. He's the son of Dusty Rhodes and the brother or half brother of Cody Rhodes, the American Nightmare. He later presented a deep and drastic spin-off of the character of Stardust. He also is known for his appearance with WCW as the Natural Dustin Rhodes, TNA, unfortunately, as Black Rain, and as I said, right now in AEW. He's doing a half and half, Dustin and somewhat Goldust, but either red or blue. Between WWF and WCW, Dustin has won a total of 23 championships. In WCW, he had two-time U.S. heavyweight champion, one-time six-man tag team titles, a two-time World Tag Team Championship. Over in WWE, he's a three-time Intercontinental Champion, nine-time Hardcore Champion, one-time World Tag Team Champion, two-time WWE Tag Team Champion, and Dustin has also appeared in the second most amount of Rumble matches at 13, and Dustin headlined multiple pay-per-view events in WWF and WCW during the 90s. He's also a former Sammy Guevara vlog champion, I guess, with AEW. But, yeah, just a lot of things Dustin's done over the years. He's faced a lot of demons. If you saw the picture of him at Black Rain, that was him at his lowest, I think. He was carrying around a rat. He was probably twice the size of what he is now. He seems to be in the best shape ever, thanks to some DDPY, and got in a good place. He just recently gave away his daughter at a wedding last weekend, and so congratulations to that family. His ex-wife is Terry. Their marriage lasted about 6 years. People remember her as Alexander York in WCW, but then as just Terry or Terry Runnels in WWE. Even after the split, he has his own wrestling school, the Rhodes Wrestling Academy. Wrestling Observer newsletter gave him worst gimmick in 95, 97, and 2007. Rookie of the Year in 89. And PWI and Wrestling Observer newsletter both said he was the most improved in 91. PWI gave him the Match of the Year in 2019. I believe that was against Cody at All Out. And PWI said he had the best comeback in the year 2013. So a lot of good for him over the years, overcoming those demons and living in the shadow of his dad, who he was quite estranged from. The other dark and probably not wanting to talk about part of his career also includes Seven, who they had him basically doing a mixture of Goldust meets Undertaker and peering through kids' windows. And just as he was supposed to appear as Seven, standards and practices went, this isn't good. And he made his whole entrance floating out to the ring, the smoke and everything. And you hear Tony Schiavone and Bobby going, what is this? And next thing you know, he's taking off the hat and just crapping all over everything and wanting to resurrect and reclaim the Rhodes name, standing up for how his dad was treated badly by WCW. I said Goldust was crap. I mean, well, that's been his go-to all the time. So, probably saying what people want him to say, but he's probably had the most success being Goldust. But that is Dustin Rhodes, our birthday superstar spotlight.
Now, with Dustin Rhodes, when he does go into the Hall of Fame, what's he going to go under as? I can't see him going in as Goldust.
I think they could do both, really, because if you have some of these guys going in under multiple times, because Booker T's gone in under himself, he's gone in under also as part of Harlem Heat. You've had Ric Flair go in as himself and the Four Horsemen, Shawn Michaels as himself and DX and stuff like that. I think they inducted Glenn Jacobs as Kane. So they can do him as his character Goldust, but also as Dustin.
Kane makes more sense because he's pretty much always been Kane. They're not going to put him in as the dentist. So with Goldust, I mean, personally, I think he should go in as Dustin Rhodes, the guy that played Goldust, because like even when they put Scott Hall in as Razor, that's bullshit. It should have been as Scott Hall because he's been more than just a certain character. I actually see Dustin coming back for Final Goodbye in WWF as the natural Dustin Rhodes.
That'd be really nice to see, and now with his brother over there. And even when Cody was over there, he might have taken a shot at Triple H by destroying that throne and stuff like that, which people knew blatantly what it is. But he's always said in interviews prior to coming back to WWE that he always had a good relationship with the McMahons, that Triple H is his favorite wrestler and stuff like that. And a lot of it's business. So, as you said, I see Dustin doing the same thing. As much as the corporate side of things being McMahon versus Tony Khan exists, everybody else is just trying to make a living. And they're out for each other as well as themselves. So I definitely see Dustin there, and it'd be great to see him as a natural going into the Hall of Fame.
All right, we got some other birthdays we're going to go to, not just Dustin's. Now, how old was Dustin? Did we get to see? There it is. It's down there. Okay, so birthdays. April 7th, Rosie would have turned 52 years old.
And for those not aware of Rosie fully, he is actually Roman Reigns' brother.
And that was the, I'd say, late 90s, definitely, but I don't know, 98, 99, somewhere.
Superhero in training.
Or I guess that was a little later then. It would have been the early 2000s. There you go. April 9th, Bianca Belair, yikes. She is 33 and quite the wrestler. I'm not a fan of the whole hair whipping thing, but hey. April 10th would have been the 67th birthday of William Alvin Moody, known as Percival Pringle III, but best known as Paul Bearer. Back to Belair for a second there. I think with the long hair, I'd see her more as a villain than a good person. A villain would use that thing to whip their opponent, not a good person.
Yeah,
so
well,
I'm kind of confused with that whole thing.
Over in NXT, before she got brought up, she was a heel, and it was a little bit of what you said, using her hair as a weapon, but also her attitude was that much like how Sasha Banks is the boss, all right, and being arrogant, how she is the EST, the biggest, the best, the strongest, that's a very
that
arrogant.
Makes sense. I actually see her more as a bad character than good. Like, I think she'd do better as a bad character.
It's only a matter of time, I think, before they switch her.
Yeah. April 10th, Jesse Neal turns 42. Juice Robinson turns 33. Harley Race would have turned 79. Dustin Rhodes, or Goldust, he was born in 1969. He turns 53. I can't believe he's only 4 years older than I am. That's kind of, wow. April 11th, Balls Mahoney would have turned 50. April 14th, Lita turns 47. Bryan Adams would have turned 58. And, of course, that's not the singer. That's Kona Crush, or whatever you want to call him. And also on the 14th, Marina Sheriff turns 34. And it's also on the 14th, a happy 28th birthday to Bin Wang, a.k.a. Tiang Bing, known as one of the first Chinese-born wrestlers to sign with the WWE. He made his television debut in the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic in October of 2017 and competed in the Andre the Giant Battle Royale at WrestleMania 33. his first main roster bout, he would leave the WWE in 2018. And again, the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, that should be at WrestleMania pre-show, sure, but it should be at the actual WrestleMania event itself.
Yep. Once again, regulated to SmackDown WrestleMania.
Yeah. Blah. And April 14th, it's a happy 81st birthday for Peter Edward Rose Sr., a.k.a. Kane's bitch, Pete Rose.
Yeah, the only Hall of Fame that Pete Rose can get into, though I do think Major League Baseball is waiting for him to pass away before they give him his spot in the Hall of Fame, because he deserves it, but they don't want him to publicly get it because of his betting on baseball.
And that's something they need to get over. At least they could do is go, you know what, Pete Rose? You're going in. It's just when you're dead. Sorry about your luck.
Exactly.
Okay, the Monday Night Wars. I'll let Shawn start this off, and then he can decide whether he wants to do the WCW or the WW F1, as this is one that he picked himself, and he can tell you why.
Yeah, I was listening today on my drive to Conrad Thompson and Tony Schiavone, What Happened When episode that just came out. And it's a watch along of the Monday Night Raw. I'm only partway through it so far. But what made it significant is the fact that this Monday Night Wars was the first time that WWE finally beat WCW after 83 consecutive weeks of being losing in the ratings war, which is the reason why for Eric Bischoff's podcast being called 83 Weeks. But what was the reason for it is all basically about McMahon and Austin. So I'll talk about the WCW show, and you can take over and tell us all about Raw. So over on WCW, it was held at the Target Center in Minneapolis, Minnesota. There was a singles match with Scott Steiner defeating Fit Finlay in 3 minutes. Ultimo Dragon defeated Lenny Lane in 5 minutes. Johnny Grunge defeated Chavo Guerrero Jr. in 2.5 minutes. Chris Benoit defeated Glacier in 4:21. Lex Luger defeated Buff Bagwell with Eric Bischoff in the corner by disqualification in almost 6 minutes. The WCW Cruiserweight title was on the line, and Chris Jericho successfully defended against Super Callow in 4 minutes and 52 seconds. There was Perry Saturn defeating Van Hammer in 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Goldberg defeating Rocco Rock in 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Kurt Hennig with Larry Hennig, Rick Rude, and Rick Rude Sr. in his corner. I didn't realize there was Rick Rude Sr. Defeating Yuji Nagata, who had Sonny Ono in his corner, in 2 minutes and 53 seconds. The WCW television title match saw champion Booker T defeat La Parka in 3 minutes and 27 seconds. The United States Heavyweight Championship was on the line as DDP took on Rage with Chaos in his corner and won in 3 minutes and 1 second. Singles action, Rick Steiner with Ted DiBiase by his side defeated Conan, who had Vincent in his corner, in 3 minutes and 32 seconds. And the main event saw the World Heavyweight title match, Kevin Nash defeating Sting by disqualification in 8 minutes and 23 seconds. There's a lot of wrestling going on here, but in a short amount of time at the same time. So this looks like it was an episode that was probably 3 hours, because WCW actually started the whole 3 hour episodes that God knows that WWE fans regret seeing Raw as. But there was nothing really significant going on that I think people would have stayed tuned for. And Raw had...
Well, I would have stayed tuned for the Lenny Lane Ultimo Dragon match. I mean...
Well, it would have been decent, and that was early in the night. But it did go against Raw, and I think it was only 2 hours. You want to tell us what happened on Raw?
Yeah, and did you know that Lenny Lane actually did wrestle for the WWE after WCW? A match on Heat, and it was 2004.
Very brief.
Okay, over on Raw, I just Googled that. I was just curious. I haven't heard the name of Lenny Lane in a while. The 83-week streak of WCW winning the ratings war would finally come to an end, and here's how. The April 13th, 1998 edition of Raw is War took place on April 13th, 1998 at Core State Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The WWF Raw Nielsen TV rating was 4.6, while the Nitro Nielsen TV rating was 4.2. This was the first Raw rating win for the WWE over Nitro after all those 83 weeks. Nitro would only win 8 more ratings over Raw until the Monday Night War ended, of course, on March 15, 2001. The show centered around Austin refusing to be a corporate champion and jump. Whenever Vince said jump, Steve would challenge Vince to their first ever match for the WWF Championship. Against the pleading of Pat, Jerry, and Shane to not accept the challenge, Vince accepted the challenge. The Disciples of Apocalypse, Skull and 8 Ball, versus Los Boricuas, Savio Vega and Jose Estrada ended in no contest in a chain match, which is only 2 minutes. Why they didn't bother, I don't know. Taka Michinoku defeated Jeff Jarrett with Tennessee Lee by DQ in 3 minutes. Poor Jeff Jarrett.
Sorry to interrupt. That's actually the part where Tony Schiavone and Conrad joked that was when fans did switch over to WCW to watch for a couple minutes. Of course, all in joking, but it is Jeff Jarrett wearing a white cowboy suit and red flashing J's. And they are friends now anyways, because they're part of the whole podcast team over at Ad Free Shows. But yeah, It was a jab at Jarrett for that one.
Terry Funk and Too Cold Scorpio defeated the Quebecers, Jacques and Pierre, in 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Ken Shamrock and Steve Blackman versus the Midnight Express, Bombastic Bob and Bodacious Bart, with Jim Cornette and Dan Severn, ended in a double DQ, 3 minutes and 46 seconds. Owen Hart defeated Billy Gunn with Triple H, X-Pac, China, and the Road Dogg. That went a whole 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Steve Austin versus Vince McMahon with Patterson, Briscoe, Sergeant Slaughter, and Shane McMahon ended in a no contest in a WWF Championship match. And the dark match, which of course wasn't shown, was at LOD 2000, and joining Steve Austin, The Undertaker defeated D-Generation X, which was New Age Outlaws, Billy and the Road Dogg, and Triple H and Kane in an 8-man tag team match. And that is it for this week in wrestling history. Of course, it's compiled from the vast land of Google, Wikipedia, CageSideSeats.com, and most importantly, for fans and journalists and Shawn that had front row seats to history. And a big thank you to our sponsor, as always, Coolbet. Coolbet.com and sportsbook betting and casino games. Stay cool and bet responsibly. And as always, thanks to all of our genres listeners and everyone else who listens on all the media streaming platforms out there.
Yeah, we are on so many different ones, at least a dozen different podcasting outlets, including Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, iTunes as well. Watching on Rumble, YouTube, and Facebook. I want to thank everybody for that. We are actually working to get another sponsorship with Hammerlock Pure Wrestling. I work for them as future ring announcer and currently audio and timekeeper. So I want to thank our future sponsorship in Hammerlock Pure Wrestling, and wanted to invite everybody to join us in Strathroy, Ontario on Saturday, April 23rd at 6 p.m. The doors open, and bell time is 7 o'clock. Have details on our Facebook page, and you can always get tickets through their site, Hammerlock Apparel, or you can reach out to me And you can meet up with me at the show, taking some great independent wrestling and bringing wrestling back to the vintage old school style where it's more grappling and catch-as-catch-can style. So check out Hammerlock Pure Wrestling, our newest sponsor, and I'll have more graphics coming up about them as we hammer out, no pun intended, our deal with Hammerlock Pure Wrestling. But come out and join us, Strathroy, April 23rd, and Elmer, Ontario, on May 14th. Anywhere in Ontario, it's always just a short drive to some great independent wrestling. So support wherever it's happening, but especially come out and join us, or in me, for Hammerlock. So until next time, have a great week, and we will see you on our next episode, where we're going to look at, I believe, Brutus Beefcake and Ravishing Rick Rude in our Superstar Spotlights. So until next time, have a great one.